The release of Chapter 5 has finally happened, and we saw a lot of stuff, but the biggest moment of all is obviously the long-awaited reveal of the prototype. Right now, we're going to talk about who's actually hiding behind the prototype's mask, what was going on with him before the events of the Hour of Joy, and how that affected him later on, what's behind this straight-up manic obsession with Poppy, and what's going to happen next. Throughout all the chapters, the devs were slowly revealing who was actually hiding behind each monster's mask, but the true identity of the prototype stayed a secret for a long time. The main theory about who the prototype could be was Elliot Ludwig, who, as we all know, is the founder of Playtime Co. But in Chapter 5, Mob Entertainment finally revealed the truth to us.
You want to talk? I'm here. I don't pretend to know, but no, Olly.
It's never about me. Never about my place. It was for her. She's all you talk about.
Oh, my boy.
Don't. You don't get to call me that. Please, call me. Test run. The prototype. You care about it. You'll pick up a hammer just like him. Just like Adam.
Now, see, make things go back to how they used to be, but we could be a family if you want. And for what it's worth, I think you and her would get along really well. And that's your name. Well, I can call you whatever you like. Soon.
The very same Olly who was helping us in the 3rd and 4th chapters turned out to be the prototype. And if before we were sure the prototype had just stolen the voice of one of the orphans named Olly, now it's obvious that Oliver himself is the prototype, and this is where things really start getting interesting. We see Elliot call Olly my boy, and he responds with, "You don't get to call me that." This detail might seem small at first, but it helps us realize this isn't the first time Elliot has called him that. Sure, Elliot Ludwig tried to treat all the orphans kindly, but in that line, you can hear something more than just fake care. Overall, their conversation feels like a father talking to his son, and you could hear that in a lot of the lines and the way they said them. During that conversation, you can tell that at that point, Olly had already become the prototype, but even then, he was still relatively calm. He wasn't labeled as controllable or safe, but you also couldn't see the intense hatred yet that would eventually lead to the Hour of Joy. But if you were really paying attention, you probably noticed that Olly is clearly unhappy with how Elliot treats him, hinting that all the conversations and everything else are focused only on Poppy. There are a few versions of who Olly really was: Elliot Ludwig's biological son and therefore Poppy's real brother, or just an orphan Elliot adopted. However, considering that Poppy didn't know that Olly was the prototype,
Olly! Something's gone horribly wrong. The safe haven...
Shelf ventilation block B6. Is this where you are, Poppy?
What?
Stay where you are.
And listen closely. You're not going to run. You're not going to fight. The charade is over.
Who is this?
An obvious question with an obvious answer.
we pretty much understand that Olly was an orphan who was adopted by Elliot Ludwig. The reason why Elliot chose Oliver as his son and as the future prototype still remains a mystery to us, but I feel like it all comes down to Olly's intelligence. Elliot Ludwig was clearly not a dumb man, and he could easily see who had the most potential, and unfortunately for Olly, he was that kid. Going back to the conversation between Elliot and Olly, we realized that Olly was, let's say, mildly surprised by the way he was treated, which became the root cause of his hatred toward everyone working at Playtime Co. Some he straight up killed, and others he turned into useless and helpless toys. But no matter what, Poppy is still his main target, and this is where things get way more interesting. We already talked about how during that conversation, Olly expressed his frustration with the constant mentions of Poppy, who was always Elliot's #1 priority. That obviously triggered jealousy in Olly, which eventually turned into an obsession with Poppy. Going back to one of the VHS tapes from the 4th chapter, we can remember this.
So awful. I didn't want... This wasn't what I thought we were gonna leave. Leave the factory. Not this. All those people. Prototype says we can't leave. Not now. Not ever. I hate him. I hate him. And I hate this place. And I hate that he's... right. He explained everything. And he's right. We can't leave. It's too risky. What they did to us, we can't ever let it happen to us or anyone ever again.
While Poppy trusted the prototype, listened to him, and followed him, the prototype, because of that same jealousy, was already filled with the desire to keep Poppy as close to himself as possible. It's hard to say whether that came from some twisted sense of love for Poppy, or just from wanting to make Poppy's life as miserable as possible. But everything that's about to be said points more and more toward the second option. Several years of confinement inside that very case, constantly being somewhere nearby but never fully showing up. Even the imprisonment in what you could call a basement jail is basically a psychological game. Poppy and Kissy know that the prototype is aware of their location, but he didn't show up there right after Lily Lovebraids caught Poppy. To fully understand the core of their relationship, we need to listen to their dialogue after the very first appearance of the prototype on our screens.
What did you do with them? Where are the orphans? Uh-oh, she doesn't know.
I did.
What I had to.
There.
A better place now.
You're a monster!
I built us a home.
And kept us.
Safe.
And you repaid me by
Bringing in an outsider.
plotting to
Destroy the only heaven
You or I.
will ever get. I had hoped your time in the case would help you see.
Reason.
I see now. This was my fault. You act
like a child because
a child.
is what they made you.
You're hurting me!
Don't be afraid.
I can fix you.
Poppy?
I
Can make better.
If you look closely, you can see that here, the prototype is doing everything he can to show his superiority and his dominance over Poppy, presenting her as a helpless toy who can't do anything. You can also notice that in this scene, and pretty much always, the prototype could have easily killed Poppy, but he didn't, and instead just left a permanent reminder of his superiority on her face. Also, remember one of the final scenes of Chapter 5. The prototype seriously injures us first, completely taking away any hope Poppy had of escaping, and then lowers us into Poppy Gel, which has unexplained regenerative properties, and with that move, once again, leaves Poppy alone, with a total misunderstanding of what's gonna happen next. I'm more than sure that in the next chapter, we're definitely gonna see Poppy alive, since we already figured out the prototype has a completely different goal, but whether we'll destroy the prototype in the next chapter is a whole separate video topic. I'm insanely curious to hear your thoughts about the video down in the comments, and I'll see you very soon.